Hi, Women of Grace. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Alfonso, and I'm here to share with you a time when God sustained me, and He continues to do so. It all started April 2020. And as you recall, that was about the beginning, or more or less the beginning of the pandemic, where lots was going on in the world. We were all very fearful of, catching the virus, the coronavirus. Also, a lot of us were looking for toilet paper. We couldn't even find that. So it was a lot going on in the world. Well, my husband and I did receive some good news that I was pregnant with my fourth child. So in the midst of all that unknown and the craziness, we did have some good news. And I've always wanted to have 4 kids. I already have 3. I already had 3, so my girls were 9, 7, and 5. So the thought of having a 4th kid was just complete our family, and here we are, just so excited. Now, one little thing that was in the back of my mind, we had just had, well, not just, but we had been through 4 miscarriages before. So the idea of being pregnant didn't necessarily mean it was going to end up the way we wanted it. So we knew to really trust God with the outcome. And at that time, my doctor was very aware of my history. So we did a really early on ultrasound to check for the heart rate. And we were really excited. My little bean's heart was beating, and we just couldn't be more excited about any of it. Well, it all started to change around week 11 when I had an ultrasound just to check what was going on. That ultrasound showed the back of the baby's neck a little thicker than normal. Actually, it wasn't really little, it was 3 times thicker than the normal amount. So the doctor said, okay, well, come back in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll recheck it, we'll do some blood work on you. So I asked, okay, but what does that mean? And the doctor said, I can't tell you for sure, but usually it means some kind of abnormality. Well, our daughter number 3 already has special needs, so the thought of having another special needs child was a little bit overwhelming. But second, the thought of having a healthy baby is what every pregnant woman usually hopes for, prays for. So here we are, faced with a possible abnormality or diagnosis. So I come back again 2 or 3 weeks later for an extra ultrasound and blood work. Well, that ultrasound confirmed what had already been told to me, that the blood work was, that the baby's neck was 3 times the amount of thickness, and also the blood work showed us pinpointed the abnormality, which the doctor then tells me it indicates trisomy 21. For those of you who don't know or not familiar, that's an extra copy of the chromosome 21, which is commonly known as Down syndrome. So at that moment, I can tell you my world just stopped. And we're in the midst again of the pandemic. Now this time we're around June or July, and I'm there without my husband, everybody wearing a mask, and all by myself, but really Jesus in my heart. At that moment, I just stopped and I asked God, is this really happening? Could this be really happening to me? And then I stopped and I said to the doctor, hey, am I having a boy or am I having a girl? And she's like, oh man, I was so taken by the diagnosis that I forgot to look. So she goes in the computer and she looks and she tells me, oh, you're having a boy. And I was like, whoa, what a bittersweet moment. I've always wanted to have a boy. I have 3 girls now, and but the fact that this boy now had Down syndrome was not part of what I what I had dreamed of, what I had thought I would be experiencing as a possibility for him. So the doctor also told me that the test was about 96% accurate. So here I am, foolish me, thinking, well, I have 4% for this doctor to be wrong. As a matter of fact, I only need one chance. I mean, God doesn't need anything. So he could, change him in a heartbeat. So, but I held on to that 4% for a while because I was truly in disbelief. I just wanted it to go away and I didn't want it to be real. And I know there's some moms that have embraced other diagnoses or different things in their pregnancies much easier than me. But if I can be brutally honest, I was not that kind of mom. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I thought nothing was going to change. It's all going to be great. No, I was wondering, is God going to allow this to happen? Is God going to take this away? Please allow this not to be the case. So here was the beginning of a very hard pregnancy. As I look back, I did cry very often. I mean, for those of you who know me, I'm not really a crier. I guess God made me with a tough personality for one reason or another, but I couldn't hold back the tears. Anyone who asked me or talked to me about it, I would just break down. And so I ended up looking up on Google, and it turns out that I was having, I think what I was feeling and how I was reacting was I was grieving. I was having grieving symptoms for the typical baby that most likely I wasn't going to have. So for the next few months, I was really faced front and center with some of my biggest fears, the fears of the unknown. What is life like with Down syndrome? What is life like raising a son with Down syndrome? Would I be able to be the mom my son needed me to have or to be? And could I really take care of another special needs child? Would it be too overwhelming of physically and emotionally? So the pandemic was so scary, but to be honest with you, going through these doctor's appointments, starting from that point on, just became the scariest thing, much more scary for me. And as an older mom, I needed to go every 2 weeks, especially now with this diagnosis. They wanted to make sure that the baby was okay and things were going as smoothly as they could. But those frequent doctor visits really didn't add to my happiness or my joy. As a matter of fact, they were really difficult. One doctor asked me, "How are you dealing with all of this?" And, it was somewhat in the beginning of finding out, that was 3 weeks later. And I told him honestly, I have no idea other than the fact that I have Jesus in my heart. And I am entrusting him with this. And I know that he doesn't make mistakes. But honestly, other than that, I have no idea at the moment. I really don't. And one doctor asked me, "Do you know what Down syndrome is?" And I'm thinking, okay, how can I know what Down syndrome is? I don't live under a rock, right? Most people have heard of it and knows. But then I said, yes, of course I do, but knowing what I know now, what he meant was to make sure that I really understood. I mean, Down syndrome babies, 50% of them are born with heart issues. Many of them are born with malformed organs. They're also born with vision or hearing issues. Some even stillborn. So the doctor wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting myself into, quote unquote. One doctor also told me, well, this baby's going to take 95% of your time, are you sure you want to have him? Because you're only going to have a little bit of time for your other daughters. And that's when I stopped and I was wondering, okay, what is he really asking me? And then he just blurted out, are you interested in having a termination? You still have time. And then I looked at him. I just thought, does he want me to kill my son because he has a diagnosis? Is he really insinuating this? I mean, he wasn't even insinuating. He was straight up asking me. So of course not. I told him, of course not. And he told me, well, most women in your position would do it. So trying to make me feel good about it. And then he says, as a matter of fact, most babies with Down syndrome don't make it because they're either have physical hardships or malformations in the womb and they are not born alive, or mothers have abortions. So I just want you to know that. And you have until week 24 to decide. Well, with my frequent doctor's visits, every time I went, I was asked if I wanted to terminate him. And I guess doctors are so scared to be sued that they have to do certain things even after you answer the same thing over and over. Doctors should just have to go through a protocol, I guess. But I confirmed I was not going to kill my son because of diagnosis. And at that point, I realized my son had just as much right to live as anyone else. And I was fighting for his life, and he wasn't even born yet, and also how he was going to be born into a cruel, mean world that doesn't value him as much. And that was very sad. I definitely did not add to the joy of it all. And that's when God reminded me of Psalm 139. And I'll read it to you. The Bible says, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. He watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, and as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. So God has seen my son. Not only has he seen him, he has made him. Every single part of him. My son has God's fingerprints on him. And God did not only make one cell have Down syndrome. As a matter of fact, it was trillions of them. That's a lot of cells. So it is very important, ladies, to be ready for the storms of life, because the truth is the Bible does not provide any guarantee that we're going to have a joyous, happy life every single day of our lives. The storms are going to come. That's a promise. So at that time, I'm very glad that I had hidden God's word in my heart, that I knew Psalm 139, maybe not by memory, but I knew it. And having that godly relationship reminded me of his goodness, for sure. Also, the God that had been there with me through all the good times in my life was the same God, because he's unchanging. So he's there as well in the darkness. We like to think of God just being the good in the good part of life, but guess what? He is always there. And he has never disappointed me. I mean, as a matter of fact, I can remember countless times that he has been the best part of everything that I've ever done. Never disappointing. He also has a purpose for everything and everyone that he creates. We have a perfect, loving, wise, and holy God. And because of this, he is incapable of creating wrong or evil. And because he's all-knowing, he does not make mistakes. Maybe this was unknown to me and my husband, but my son was part of God's creation from the day that God created the heavens and the earth. This reminds me of a story in John 1:3, which I'll read to you. This story God brought to my heart as well on some of the hard days that I was having. So John 9:1-3 says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? And Jesus says, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. So God could be glorified in the way he was created. So all of God's creation, humans, were made to worship and to glorify God. We were made to worship and glorify God with our talents, with our personality, also with our hardships and our trials, including diagnosis. This is the part of the fallen world that is very difficult to comprehend and to be okay with. But God created everything in my son to worship him and to glorify him. So Down syndrome is exactly what he chose. Well, little by little, throughout my pregnancy, God really gave me the strength to carry on. And at that time, I just remember the maker of the heavens and the earth, who created everything around me. He could have created a black and white world, but he created everything colorful and perfect, in perfect harmony. Just everything exactly how he wanted it. The creator of the heavens and the earth created my son and was moving him in my womb. God also reminded me at that time, those dark days, of the story of Moses and the Israelites in the desert. When everybody was hungry and needing provision, God would open the heavens and throw the manna through the heavens, and he would provide just enough for the day. And he warned them. He said, don't take any more than what you need for the day, because tomorrow I'll provide again. Well, some people became very fearful, and they would grab extras just to be sure they had enough for tomorrow. Well, the extra that they would grab, they would keep, would spoil. And it's just a big reminder to me during my hard days that I didn't have to worry about tomorrow, that God was going to provide then. All I had to worry was about today. And during those days, God absolutely provided for the day. He gave me enough peace and strength and love. He surrounded me with the godly friends and family who truly cared, who prayed for me, who asked how I was doing, who listened to me without any judgment. I was even showered with a virtual baby shower, something I never expected to happen. I wasn't able, because of COVID and also from some health issues, I wasn't able to have a regular baby shower for my first boy. But yeah, that virtual baby shower really was like a soothing balm to my heart. God also provided me with an awesome husband and 3 beautiful, loving daughters to share this journey with. And finally, on December 21st of 2020, the day that the Star of David, that hasn't happened in 800 years, was shining in the sky, that day, my son, Jonathan James, was born. Jonathan, the name Jonathan actually means God has given. And he was also David's best friend in the Bible. Well, that day was full of fears and unknowns, but also so much joy. I loved taking a little peek at his handsome face before they had to take him away to the NICU, where he spent 4 days. And he also ended up spending 19 days at the hospital after that. My son had some feeding hardships, and we weren't aware at first, and he took almost a month to pick that up. He really overcame some hard initial battles, but today he's a healthy 7-month-old baby boy. I mean, he's a ball of chubbiness, full of energy, and truly my ray of sunshine. I wake up every morning looking forward to hugging him and to seeing his gummy smile. We adore him. My family and I adore him. And I cannot imagine my life without him. And I don't know what the future holds. And I'm not supposed to live in the future because only God is there. I'm supposed to live in the present, trusting my Lord and Savior with my future and that of my family. And the truth is, tomorrow is not guaranteed to anyone, right? So why live there? Why not live where you're supposed to live, which is in the present? And the Bible also says that our whole entire life is nothing but a vapor. I mean, have you ever stared at a vapor before? Like water steaming or boiling, and then you look at the vapor, maybe it lasts 3-4 seconds. Well, our Bible compares our whole life to that, because in the midst of eternity, our whole life, which is timed, is nothing but a vapor. So will I be so concerned about this part of my life when my entire life is nothing but a vapor, when I should be really concerned about eternity and everything that God has told me to be true? I'm thankful that I know Jesus in my heart, that I know that if I were to die today, I would live with him forever in eternity. Do you know that for sure? Because the truth is, going through through life without knowing for sure if you're going to go to heaven, going through hardships without Jesus in our hearts, makes life merely unbearable. And today I want to challenge you. If you don't have Jesus in your heart, will you talk to one of the leaders today and ask him to help you? Or pray that Jesus will enter into your hearts. That is the only thing that we take from this earth, is that assurance. And I hope you have been blessed. I have been very blessed to share with you. Thank you for listening.